everybody, I'm Tommy. You are on the Love Boat. What's happening? Been a while, hasn't it? Jane Aldrich, good to see you. Roberta, what's happening? Kristen Melinda, I'm glad that you're here. It is, it's Sunday night, folks. This was my brother's birthday as well. It's been a super odd couple of days. Taylor Miller, good to see you. Hi, Susie, how are you? Sidetrack, searching for a cigarette. I know the feeling. Archie's mom, how are you? Yeah, we're good. This is going to be a fun show, folks. Seriously, we're gonna have a couple of laughs, and we're going to talk about a subject that doesn't get talked about enough. Can I get a 5 by 5? Right? How do I sound? Do I look good? You can see me. Just Joan, Tommy Bird. Hey, Tommy Bird, how you been? Good to see you as well. Hey, Barbara Waite, Lisa Trimble. There you are. How are you? Here for a bit, and then I know the Scovilles are kind of hitting at the wrong time. It's probably something that we need to work on. And from Mass, how are you? See, I'm running on the old time that I used to go live, and it's not that same time for me anymore. In fact, it's considerably later. If you look out the window, it's dark outside. It's very, very dark outside. So this is about the time of night normally where we would have been done for a couple of hours. Texas Kate, how are you? So I did a show about a week ago or something. Can we get some ones for Texas Kate, please? That would make me happy. Dane Young, good to see you. And we don't, you never need share what that's for. I'm of the belief that the man upstairs has probably figured it out before we ask. Yukon, good to see you. Love that name. I really do. So last week I did a show, and I talked briefly about these alpha males. This is a alpha male universe, right? It's kind of fascinating. It's in a really unhealthy way. This is a fascinating phenomenon, and kind of an unhealthy one, right? All right, too hot. So if you know my history, hey, Relatable Reese, good to see you. If you know my history at all, you're probably aware of the fact that there was a time when I worked as a public speaker, and I went around the country. This was in the days before the internet was really cooking. Been watching your interview with Matthew Cox from a few years ago in the hospital, so it's keeping me entertained. Well, excellent. I'm glad that I'm not glad you're in the hospital. I'm glad you're entertained. Kellyanne, it was taken over by reality TV. Okay, well, we used to run infomercials late at night, very late at night. And infomercials were, excuse me, were super inexpensive. I mean, wickedly inexpensive if you ran them at about midnight. And what we would do is we would run infomercials, and you guys have seen them. If you're of a specific age, you definitely saw them. And they went something like this: how to make money in real estate. And then a guy would come on and say, I made X amount of dollars in 2 weeks, or I made X amount of dollars. I flipped my first house within the first 10 days. All of those statements had to be backed up with the Federal Trade Commission. That's the truth. And they all were. Hey, Renee B. However, there are ways, right? There are ways to really play with that and be a dirtbag. So while we weren't breaking the law, while we were not breaking the law, we were sure as stuff unethical, right? Wildly unethical. And that industry, hey, Tony Hooter, good to see you. Can we get some thoughts and prayers for Texas? Forgot about that. I saw it yesterday on the web, and I wasn't live yesterday. Was that before, after, or during being an inmate? It was before, and then after. It was before and after. When I remember all those cheesy infomercials. Some of them were so sketchy. I'll be honest with you, most of them were sketchy, because here's the thing: they delivered on the promise. They did. They were going to sell you a coaching package, but it was slick, and it made you feel that fear of missing out, right? Which is a big thing in sales. And whether or not they're pressuring you literally, they sure as hell know how to say it so that you pressure yourself, right? Which is not healthy. It has gone away. That industry is almost completely gone, and it didn't go away per se. right? They just don't make infomercials anymore. Now there's other ways they do it. Hey, K Canadian, good to see you. Your nephew is not in the NICU. How good is that? Yeah, right? Everything else tonight's probably going to be a bunch of BS compared to that. I mean, that's important, right? Good stuff. That makes me happy. It really does. Yeah, that's a good thing. It really is a good thing. So they end up migrating to the internet. And the funnel thing, it is what it is, right? You guys have all been in a funnel, whether you wanted to or not. This thing sounded great. You clicked on something and they give you a little bit more information and they say, click here and you're going to find out for free. And they keep channeling you down. And then at the very end, they hit you with it's going to cost this much if you want to do this, right? It's not a Ron Popeil. Well, anyway, Ron Popeil, hey, here's the thing, man. Ron Popeil delivered a product. Say what you will about Ronco, right? The pocket fisherman made that man very, very wealthy because he delivered on what he said he was going to give you. It was a very small fishing pole that, folded up and went in a box. It was excellent product. And he did some weird ones too. He had this thing where you could cut the top off of any bottle, any glass bottle. So you could turn Budweiser into 6 glasses that you could drink out of, right? Yeah, you know what, Dane? Unethical, meaning taking advantage of people's gullibility. In my humble opinion, I think here's the thing. I said that too, but I said it because I stood in front of a microphone, right? And the onus was on the purchaser, not the seller. I also was brutally honest. ShamWow, hair in a can. That was fantastic. What was that called? The hair in a can was called, oh man, I'm not going to remember that. That was a good one. Why, thank you, Renee B. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know that, honestly, this may sound crazy. I don't want to take $1 out of this economy. I really don't. I think a lot of times we cruise into countries and start taking jobs that could go with the locals.
But Don LaPree.
Don LaPree. Hey, Don LaPree killed himself. I worked with Don LaPree. You remember this guy? I placed teeny little ads for my 1-bedroom apartment. And the whole time he's talking, it's like this. The camera is literally rotating around in circles. And he would talk about how just placing teeny little ads from his 1-bedroom apartment made him a millionaire. And it did. There was nothing about that was a lie. But like so many of these other people, they go, you know what? If running an infomercial made me this much money, if I spend that much money, I'm going to make so much more. And the greed factor starts to kick in, right? Funnel more like a vortex. Yeah, that's probably a better description. Truthfully and honestly, it's probably a better description. GLH, great looking hair. GLH, it was, wasn't it? Caroline in Canada. Yeah. And they would go, yeah, nothing to it. And then just comb it in and perfect. Not going to lie to you. I think the President of the United States may still be using that product. He bought the last of it. But the reason I bring this up is this. There is a genre on the internet, right? We've all heard people called grifters, right? This is a very popular thing to call people who get super chats or people who have memberships. Truth be told, hey, Call the Wind, good to have you here. Hey, Leona Rose, good to have you. So here's what happens. We got this alpha male universe, right? And I showed a picture the other day. Let's do this one more time because I'm pretty sure it's still in here. Let's see here. At least I was pretty sure it was in here. Then again, maybe not. There they are. So this guy on the holding up the meat, right? That's the Liver King. And to the right of him, the guy with the glasses on, everybody kind of knows him. He's one of the Tate brothers. And then on the far right, we got a guy who calls himself King Azule, right? And the guy on the far left, whose head is no longer bald like that, now it's tattooed completely, is a guy named Wes Watson. These guys are all part of the alpha male universe, right? of people that sell courses to a very vulnerable segment of the society. Terry McMullen, good to see you. Arabian Bard, how are you, Arwa? Truth be told, man, these guys are taking advantage of people who very often got swept up in a system that didn't want to freelance digital panhandler. That is a much nicer phrase. I like that. I may start going with that one myself. The freaky weirdo males. See, Archie's mom gets it. So, and here's the thing. Everything they talk about like this. And they sell coaching programs. These are exactly the same things as how to make money in real estate, how to make money on the internet, how to make money, whatever. Coaching programs, only these guys are going to coach you on how to be swole, right? They're going to let you look like, you just got out of prison. And some of the stuff that these guys say, they pump ungodly amounts of steroids, and they deny, hey, Debbie Zito, they deny that they do it. Clifton Ferguson, good to see you. Blue Sky, they lie huge about this, right? As it turns out, the guy called the Liver King, hi Lumen, the guy that they called the Liver King, his pitch was, he eats raw meat. He got that big doing nothing but eating raw liver. And I want to tell you something. It's fun to pick on, right? But having large groups of guys eat raw liver isn't healthy. It's not. It's not something you should be doing. This is off topic, but what are your thoughts, if any, on the recent Brian Koberger news? I'm going to be touching on that, Taylor. I promise. You have my word. We will be getting on that. But you know what? I can do it now because it's fairly simple, honestly. I think that, and if you're talking about exchange of plea, I think it was probably a plan from Jump Street, right? I think it was a plan from Jump Street. If he talked to any inmate or jailhouse lawyer, they will all tell you the same thing. If you're planning on pleading guilty, for God's sakes, don't do it now. Wait until they start doing voir dire, because now they're looking at how much money they're going to spend. And it's right there. They got it sitting there. And at that moment, if you say, hey, I'll take this deal, or you plead guilty there, more often than not, it is assumed, and wrongly so sometimes, but it's assumed that you're going to get a better deal. Yeah, Ann from Mass says raw liver, ew. Well, here's the thing. It's also unhealthy, right? It really is. It's unhealthy. Eating raw meat. He was allegedly, right, dropping somewhere between 30 and 50 grand a month. You know what? I think I could live on that. I think I could live on that pretty comfortably. He was dropping that on steroids, yeah, and human growth hormone. Yep. And then telling the world he was all natural. Now, he got outed by Joe Rogan. And here's where we're getting to. This is the point I want to talk to. This is, yeah, you're absolutely right. Tate obviously hates women by what he says on the Bonnie interview. Listen, he made his money off of the backs of women. He set up things like OnlyFans, right? And he set them up, a lot of them in other countries, where he exploited the hell out of women who thought they were going to go in there, take their clothes off, and make X amount of dollars, and then he screwed them over and basically took all of the money. He was a digital pimp. You can call it whatever you want, but he was a digital pimp. And that kind of money then generates the ability for these guys to lease a Ferrari or lease a Lamborghini or lease, a couple of them, and then go get a really beautiful house that they rent in South Beach. But critical thinking, right, has to start popping in. And Joe Rogan looked at this guy and said, and Rogan, whether you like him or not, this guy has hung around professional fighters his entire life, right? He owns a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's not just a guy that talks about the sport. He's a guy that understands the sport. And he's been around some of the biggest and gnarliest people you will ever come across, right? Mother told me eating raw hamburger would give me magnets. I think she meant maggots. And we never let me live it down. Yeah, you don't want magnets. I'm telling you. That's foul. You don't need those. Well, worms. There are people that talk about how eating raw meat. But if you're a kid and you're 14 years old and you're watching these jackasses, right? And look at the size of this dude. So Rogan does a little critical thinking and says, ain't no way in hell this guy got that big without juice. And he took pictures of the guy from when he was earlier on in his career. And he said he put on about 50 pounds of lean muscle mass, right? With no fat, no nothing, just eating raw liver. And he did this in a period of time that nobody on earth could do this. Now, he continued to get more yoked, and his trap started to look like a pyramid. And this guy, I mean, I'll give him credit. He's about as big as anybody you are ever going to see. For real. This guy is massive. But if you want to drop 50 grand a month, allegedly, on human growth hormone and steroids, you too can look like a liver-eating idiot, right? But that critical thinking got this guy basically laughed out of the alpha male universe. Just one guy critically thinking. And the guy, by the way, just threatened Joe Rogan's life, got arrested. His life is spiraling out of control. No way, he's natty. That's right, Johnny Skull. Natty is the term they use when these guys aren't using steroids. I know it's overused and trendy, but it's the definition of toxic masculinity. You're damn right it is. And I've never really much liked the term. But here's a good point, honestly, and one that's worth talking about. Because inadvertently, on purpose, I don't know, but there was a war against boys for a while. For real. They made it very difficult for boys to act like boys. In school, they were doing everything in sports to do everything they can to emasculate boys. Books were written about it. And then a lot of these guys don't have a man in their life, period, right? Yes, it was a leak steroid. That was my understanding as well, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was a leaked email correspondence between the Liver King and the steroid dealer. Yeah, which is really unfortunate if you're telling the whole world you're all natural. And he did a lot of other really ridiculous things. But you would see him doing workouts that, God help us, you know, he's doing 20, 30 pull-ups while wearing these massive chains that look like they would be on an anchor on a boat. Just huge, right? But there is a vacuum created by a lot of boys out there that don't have a man in their life, period. And they start going online and they start to find these guys. What's disturbing is, number one, these guys make a living by ripping people off. And trust me, because again, this was an industry that I was wildly involved in when it was on the television. Now that I've never sold anything online. I don't do coaching programs. I don't do any of that stuff, right? But these guys pretend to be self-help gurus. Wes Watson's a great example. When this guy got out of prison, he would sit on a bench and he would talk to people about how bad prison was. And he got a ton of followers. And he had a positive message at the end of every one of these videos where he would say, you can do this, you can get it, you can be in better shape, you can be a better person. Now he cannot say a sentence without a 13-letter word in it. You know that word I'm talking about? There you go. He probably does not know that liver spots are common in older people. Whole new channel. You know something? He's going to be getting that way. That's the next step. He grew a beard down to here. If you see a picture of this cat before he became a character, right? Because he's not the Liver King. You think his mom named him the Liver King, right? The people online, more often than not, create a character or at least try to protect themselves with a name that's not their real one because the internet is vicious, right? But when this guy first started, he was a handsome dude. And he looked like he stepped off the cover of Men's Journal, right? For real. He was a very, very good-looking dude, right? A very good-looking dude. I don't think being masculine is bad, but being hyper-masculine is dangerous. I think anything taken to an extreme can be dangerous. I agree. And the problem with a lot of these cats is not only do they take it way too far, right? But this is one of those situations where, so that Wes Watson, 13-letter word, starts with an M, got the word mother in it, right? And it's in every single sentence. And if you're a 14-year-old boy listening to this, and anytime he makes a reference to the girl in his life who he hired off of an escort page, I'm not being disrespectful and I'm not saying allegedly. You can find this woman. The day they broke up, she went back on the page. Right? Didn't take but about 60 seconds of research to find that. She is an escort. And I'm not busting anybody's chops for being an escort, but it's not his girlfriend. He's paying for her. Just like the rented Ferrari and the rented Bugatti and the rented house, he's renting his girlfriend. And then selling courses on how you can achieve the exact same level of success that he can. And if you look at his early videos, right, now would be the time for a little critical thinking. Because this guy said, I started dealing drugs when I was 11. Okay. Now, look, it happens. Runners, right? Guys on street corners where the dude with the dope uses really young kids to run into cars. That kind of stuff happens. It's disgusting, but it happens. But that's not what happened with him. Because he said by 13, right? By 13, he bought a Z71 jacked up pickup that he had $50,000 he had to pay for this jacked up pickup. He also had a Escalade, right? A Cadillac Escalade that he drove to work. And he tells the story about rolling a blunt in that Cadillac, right? And people coming up to the window going, hey, Wes. And he'd pull out his strap, right? That's the term he uses for a gun, to wave the people away from the window. And the guy interviewing them says, and they didn't call the cops or do anything like that. And Wes goes, this was way before people were calling cops about people with guns or whatever. This was in the same year, right? Or within a year of the Columbine shooting. I'm sure that the schools were real mellow on the whole gun thing at that point, right? Another funny thing, Cadillac hadn't rolled out the Escalade yet. He had a Range Rover, turbo Range Rover, supercharged. I'm sorry, not turbo. I don't want to sell the guy short. It was supercharged. He had a supercharged Range Rover. If he took 2 minutes to do research, he'd find out that the first time they supercharged a Range Rover, this guy was not 13. In fact, he would have been in his 20s, like maybe mid-20s. Critical thinking. This Azule guy, I mean, you want to talk about, he got into some trouble because allegedly there's some ugly stuff from his past. And he did a video to try to explain it. And he said when he went to court, the girl in question was suing his family for $50 million. $50 million. So he didn't want his dad and his family to have to pay this. In a story told a week earlier, he hated his dad and threw him through a coffee table when he was 13 years old. That was shortly before he started training with Shaolin monks. Not joking. Went to China, trained with Shaolin monks. And then he was hired by the Mossad. I got just took a hit, I promise you. That's the demonetizing right there. Yeah. But he was working on a clear crew. That means no identification, no nothing. He went in there to kill. That was it. He also said that he took on 30 men, okay, and beat the crap out of all of them. I got news for you, man. If you tried to fight 30 8th graders, you're going to lose. If you're fighting 30 grown men, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it doesn't take much to see that these guys are clowns. But this dude said that $50 million, he didn't want his dad to have to pay that. And the judge said to him, right, listen, you would be winning this case. Guaranteed you're going to win this case. But is this about the $50 million? Or is this about you going to jail or whatever? And King, I think his name is Ben Azule, said, yeah, it's about the $50 million. So the judge took the $50 million right off the table like that, and he pled guilty to protect his parents. Because in the court he was in, magically, right, criminal court and civil court had one judge. Can you imagine? How convenient is that, right? Wouldn't everybody do this? Wouldn't everybody just charge someone on the same day, with the same judge and in the same court, file a huge lawsuit? Then they have the ability. Baloney, right? Critical thinking. When the hell have we ever seen them run at the exact same time? And if you say, well, Diddy, no. Diddy is in court, and all of those things are waiting for him to be convicted or not be convicted. And the second that's over, all those civil things are going to start dropping like this, because criminal always comes first, civil comes second. The danger behind these idiots is they start saying things that if you gotta, yeah, he sounds like Rambo, for real. If you've got a grandchild or you got a son, you don't know what our kids are listening to. And if you just walked by, you're like, it's a guy's got huge muscles. He's talking about working out. But it went from, like Wes Watson, for instance, it went from him getting out of prison and talking about motivational stuff to saying, if you haven't been to prison, you're a pussy. Pardon me. Not exactly sure how to use a different word for that. But this is his pitch now. You're not worth you know what, if you mother effer haven't been to the joint. Apparently he's proud of it. And he supports this lifestyle that you see by ripping people off. Plain and simple. Selling a course that I would bet you the farm AI cranked out, right? As far as the weightlifting goes, every single person gets the exact same program. So you're 125 pounds and 17 years old, or you're 56 and 210 pounds, you're getting the exact same workout. Well, that doesn't sound very logical, does it? I'll give a little credit to the Liver King. I think he just wanted to be famous, because the Liver King was making a killing selling supplements, right? He was moving product, but he wanted to be famous. And the character of the Liver King outgrew the human being. This is an issue with every one of these ass clowns. Now, again, who cares, right? Who cares? Well, the problem is that there's nobody on that panel, maybe with the exception of the Liver King. I take that back. But the other three that aren't holding up a large slab of uncooked meat, right? Those other three will not refer to a woman unless they call her the same name you use for a female dog, right? And then we wonder, right, why there is an issue with how people treat one another. This is, I mean, literally, and we know, I mean, Tate is an absolute just vermin. But the good news is, right now, every single person I'm looking at on this panel is in legal trouble, except King Azulay, and that's the guy on the far right. He's just done, right? He's just done because he's been outed by a million people. Now, Wes Watson has too. He was a shot caller on a California yard. How about that? He was a shot caller on a California yard. I've not been to a California yard other than the federal system where I have been on a California yard. But I've never seen someone who wasn't a gangbanger and who wasn't on a level 4 yard ever become a shot caller. He claims to have done more prison time than he actually has. That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. It literally staggers the imagination that this dude thinks he gets more credibility as a human being if he claims he was in prison a little bit longer. He went to prison because he had to handle business, right, for a guy that stiffed him on the weed that he was selling. First of all, you got any idea how much grass you got to sell to buy a $50,000 Z71 jacked up pickup, especially because when that kid was of age, and I'm giving him a break now. Now I'm giving him a 3-year break, older than when he claimed he bought that Z71 pickup. If you got one with the package that was really a nice one, I mean, still you might have had to put some other stuff on it, but you were looking at 19 grand. So if you paid as much for your jacked up tires and shock absorbers as you did for the entire vehicle, where the hell did that other $14,000 go? Maybe he blinged it out. Maybe he put diamonds all over it. Or maybe it's like his Cadillac Escalade, which he was driving before Cadillac made an Escalade, right? Or the gun he was tapping the window on, right? Because at that point, they didn't worry about guns around schools, right after the Columbine shooting, right? This is absolutely insane. And it would be funny as hell, right? It really would. It would just be funny as hell if it wasn't really dangerous. Because the number of Wes Watson clones that have popped out who are just jackwagons that buy his course, right? By the way, you can invest anywhere from like $3 grand, allegedly, or $1,500, I think might be the small package. And he said, you know, there's a $1,500 package for you pussies that don't want to really, I mean, good Lord, you hear this and then go, yeah, I'm going to need the bigger package, brother. But there are packages that go up to $30K. $30,000. And then what he does is he schedules so that he can meet you. We're gonna do a one-on-one conversation. We're gonna do it on Wednesday. And if you can keep that person, right, hopping from place to place and not getting that call, about day 90, you tell them, sorry, I had to go to the hospital. Hey, I'm getting on a flight, but we're gonna do this next Thursday. Because at that 90-day point, he'll tell that mother effer to F off. And then that guy's gonna go back and say, hey, I wanna cancel this. And they go, no, it's too late. You only have 90 days. Now, if that happened to you, call your bank. If it happened to you, call your credit card company, because those rules apply to someone who didn't steal from you, right? Didn't steal from you. These guys steal for a living. Every other word out of their mouth is foul. And I mean, look, you want to curse, man, curse, right? Honestly. But to sit in a room and do interviews where every single word is also so ridiculous. How about this one? If you pound your bone, right? Like if you break a bone, which a lot of us have done, when it heals, calcium is going to grow over the broken part, and it's going to be thicker there for life. I remember when I was a little kid, I broke my collarbone, and you could actually see for a few years that one collarbone was considerably thicker than the other in the middle, because it healed that way. So this guy's telling kids, bang your head against the wall, and over the course of a year of doing this every day, giggity, you can make your skull 4 times thicker than it is. And that's good. That's good, because the reason that you don't want to punch someone in the skull is because the skull is the thickest and heaviest bone on the body. I was always under the assumption that the femur was the biggest bone in the body, and trust me, it is. But the ridiculous things that roll out of these guys' mouths, say what you will about Tate, the guy's got his money, right? He made a ton of money. He did it ripping off women. He's a digital pimp. And every country that he's living in is trying to get a case against him. For real. He's running out of places to hide. Digital pimp. But all of these people then start falling back onto the, hey, have I got a course for you, right? And it's sad because you hear the stories of people who've got $4 grand left to their name. But this guy got out of prison, right? He got out of prison and turned his life around that much, right? And now he just wants to help other people. He wants to help them out of $4,000 or $1,500 if you're a pussy. He's not providing a service to any of these people. He's not. How is this not criminal? It's a really great question, isn't it? Well, the wording that you use is so important. Kristen Melinda, the last time we talked about this, said, using techniques found within the system. In the old days of infomercials, right? You had to make the infomercial, get people who actually took the product, then went out and made money with it. So you could make an infomercial and say, here's the testimonial. Later on down the road, you would just find, say, 8 very successful people. And by very successful, I mean they went from rags to riches in, say, anywhere from a month to a year. And it really helps if they got a Ferrari. If not, you can rent one. But if it helps if they got an Italian sports car, a really nice wristwatch or 2. And then you would say, using techniques found within the system, I was able to make this much money. You build the system around whatever that guy's doing. Makes it legal. Is it ethical? No. Now, what these guys are doing online, I have no idea how they're getting away with this. I swear to God, I have no idea. And most of them are forever trying to get the trolls who go after them to meet them somewhere for a fight. And Wes Watson, who, by the way, is 5'8", kind of important. This will come back later on. He's 5'8", and he can't stand the fact that he's 5'8", right? This is more important to him than anything on earth. So important that he wears Chuck Taylors with 2-inch lifts in them. I'm not playing. You should see the bottom of his Chuck Taylors, man. Looks like Frankenstein's version of Chuck Taylors. Chuck E. T's heel like that. because he keeps telling people he's 6 feet tall. A monster, he said, a black guy, tall, 7 foot tall monster came down to the gym, and he had to put the guy in his place. Well, that clip of film is out on the internet, and you can see it. And what Wes did was take off his weight belt and hit this guy with it before the guy had ever touched anybody. Unfortunately for Wes, he had a posse, right? Posse. Not big. And that posse was about 4 guys, I think, maybe 5. And they're all huge, jacked, same, very similar mindsets. And they beat this dude viciously. It's not even fun to watch. Like it's really, really uncomfortable. Drops the N-word on him, right? And then a coup de grace at the end where he kicks the man as hard as he can in the face. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but allegedly they're talking about online a lot the fact that this 7 foot monster that went in there, basically to call this guy out for being 5'8", had some kind of autism. He was on the spectrum. But this guy got the bark beat off of him for doing exactly what this guy told him to do. Come on down to the gym. Don't believe I'm 6 feet tall, man? Bring your loud mouth, your loud mother effing mouth down here, and I'll shut it for you. Here's the address, right? And then they tried to say this is self-defense. Unfortunately for them, it was filmed from a bunch of different camera angles, right? There's no question in this what happened. This isn't one of a he said, she said. There is no friggin' question what happened. So this guy that's been lying about where he went to prison, who has called black people the N-word, right? And has claimed to be in white prison gangs that he's got no affiliation with. Not good. And he says, you've never seen a jacked Mexican. Mexicans can't get in shape. It's literally what the dude says. MMA fighters are pussies. He actually used the F word that is often used to describe a small bundle of sticks that I know I'll get demonetized if I say. So Mexicans, whites, blacks, everybody. This dude has literally offended everybody. And now he's going to go back. He was, are you ready? He was, again, a shot caller on a California yard. So his whole family, right? Probably you would assume this is a California family. Funny, there's some great stuff that you can find of him when he was about high school age, right? And I don't know when he was selling all this dope and buying the Cadillac Escalades and the supercharged, because the clips of film of them are of him snowboarding, right? Kind of looking like a spoiled white kid. You know what I mean? Not hell hard out in the street, going and getting an $85 lift ticket so that he could go snowboarding. I'll tell you something. He was good at it. Apparently, he was very into snowboarding. You're damn right it was, Renee B. That video is a disgrace. On the bright side, they're going to play it in court. Now, they sued Wes. Hey, B-Bombs, Wes got sued for this. So there's a civil action. He didn't show up in court, just blew it off. And the courts gave the 7 foot monster, who isn't 7 feet tall. But if you're 5'8", right, everybody looks like they're 7 feet tall if you're going to be fighting, right? Oh my God, my son is 6'5", and he's Hispanic cellmate who was his size. Oh, I've seen some jacked cats in prison, but he wasn't on level 3 and 4 yards. He was basically in camps. And you know what's crazy? He didn't even get to hang out in California. They moved him to Oklahoma. Now look, I can't tell you why they moved him to Oklahoma. I don't know why they transsegged. That's usually the term they use. I don't know why they transsegged him from California to Oklahoma, and I would never want to put out a rumor that wasn't true, even with an allegedly in front of it. But I will tell you this. It's never because you're such a badass that they got to get you off the yard you're on to protect everybody else from you. You see where I'm going? It's almost 100 out of 100 times the other way around. This dude was scared. That's usually what happens. They check in, and it's such a bad situation with the check-in that they can't even leave him in Cali. Funny thing, this guy's worth more money than he said he got 20 million, right? That he's got laying around just in one investment. Says he was making $80,000 a day, right? But he hasn't gone back to California, right? Not even a visit. Now, allegedly, That's because they'd like to see him in California. There's a lot of cats out there who'd like to say hi to him. He tattoos like Miami on his body. He has tattooed his entire body. I mean, head to toe, literally, his head, all of it, and screams at people and calls them, bad names if they don't get tattooed. Contradicts himself in every sentence. He says, I'm not calling you a pussy if you don't work out and get muscles and get tattooed and all that. I'm just telling you that if you don't follow your dreams, you're the P word, right? What if your dreams are to be a doctor? No, he actually calls that one out, and lawyers, because that's not following your dream. That's following your parents' dream. Run that by me again. There has been a paradigm shift in the way we're being advertised to. Before it was ads, now people see what's trending and default to herding to the content based on that metric. Absolutely. Here's the other thing. You get out, right, and you start doing that rah-rah thing, and you invest some money in some anabolic steroids, right, and you spend a lot of time in the gym. Now you start spitting out all kinds of info, right, about how unbelievable it was inside. He cut a man, right? He cut a man from his mouth to his ear, right? Guy, it was such a bad cut. I'm sorry, chin all the way up to the ear, over the top of the ear. 300 stitches. 300 stitches it took. When I was in Victorville, and you can look this up. When I was in Victorville, there was a guy named Muhammad who got really angry during a lockdown about what we were being fed. He said to the Calvin Johnson was the name of the was a black warden, really cool guy as far as wardens go. But he was yelling at Calvin Johnson during the lockdown. He said, I can't eat any of this stuff because it doesn't say halal on it. And Calvin Johnson said, no, loud enough for everybody in the room to hear. No, it's got a U with a circle around it. That's a universal symbol, which means it's okay for kosher. It's okay for halal, right? And the guy's like, no, I can't eat this. So maybe not the best thing. But he said, well, then you're going to go hungry. And this man, the day we got off of lockdown, cut Calvin Johnson from his belt loop to his shoulder, right? And he didn't take 300 stitches. And he got stitched on the inside and the outside. So I asked AI, how long would a cut have to be, right, to have 300 stitches? And AI said, well, normally they're going to put them at about a half an inch. However, they can mess around with it and do it any way they want. But probably about 14 to 16 feet. Chin to just over the ear. Everything that comes out of this dude's mouth is a lie. Everything. And critical thinking, it doesn't take much. If a guy says, I was driving a Cadillac Escalade when I was 13, do the math on what year he was born. And you'll go, damn, they didn't even have a Cadillac Escalade there. He had a supercharged Range Rover. Range Rover didn't make a supercharged car for another decade. I happen to be a Rover dude. I dig them, right? That's what started part of this. I said to my brother, ain't no way. No way. And I said, in a Z71 pickup for 50 grand, let's look what a Z71 pickup was sticker priced for back then. Right? But if you can build an audience, right, and you can get thousands of people who are watching your videos, and Wes was getting millions of views on his video. Now, if you know anything about YouTube or any of the platforms, there's analytics, right? Auckland, New Zealand, all right. All right. California and Florida are real, so he had to switch locations. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, he ain't going to have any fun in a Florida prison either. I promise you. He described more violence, right, in the 7 years that he was in prison. Honestly, every day this dude got up, something violent happened. And I'll tell you something. There's nobody like him in prison. I'm serious. I've never seen him. I've never seen any guy screaming at the top of his lungs in prison. That won't last long. For real. If you're such a badass that you can take the entire place will come jump you at once and see if that's the real deal. I'm telling you. Stolen Prison Valor. It sounds like a good band name. You know what? It's not a great idea. It is always an Escalade, isn't it? Always an Escalade. Who are we talking about? We're talking about a bunch of people. This guy's name is Wes Watson. He is an alpha male influencer. And I got news for you. If a guy's saying, I'm an alpha male, right? That's odd. It's like saying, I'm really humble. And I've actually heard one of these guys say, I'm really, really humble. And I just wanted to say, yeah, well, I'm the best at humble. I mean, are you kidding me? Maybe I'm wrong, but I've known a few cats in my life that I'm pretty sure were alpha males, right? And they took care of their wives. They didn't call them bitches, right? They took care of their kids. They didn't have, they didn't hop from one to the next to the next. They took care of it. And if they got a divorce, they paid their child support. And they didn't brag about things like going to the joint. Maybe it happened though, right? But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what, I've been there. And I would love to put that in the rearview mirror as fast as I can, right? Seriously. I'm not proud of being in prison. Hey, I'm such an idiot, right? That I got arrested and thrown into a box. And somehow that makes me better than or more intelligent than. If you think that, you probably bought a package from Wes Watson. I'm not kidding, right? These guys are a genre that has really jacked up YouTube. And I mean it. And the fact is, all of them are in trouble. Every one of them is in trouble. And if your kids' idols are looking at 10 years, right? Or they just got out and they're talking about how great prison was. I'm not kidding you. There were kids that came in while we were there who said straight out, a white kid I knew at Sheridan. And I said to him, what are you in here for? Because he was about my son's age. And he said, bank robbery. And I knew a little something about that. And I said, how many banks did you rob? He said, just one. I said, how did you do it? Did you use a weapon? He said, nope. He said, I just went in and told them I had a BOMB. I said, wow, how'd that work out? They gave him 72 months because they threw in terroristic threats on top of the bank robbery. And I said to him, drug habit? You know what I mean? Heroin? What were you needing that much money that fast for? Because everyone I've ever met in the joint who robbed banks had a vicious drug habit. There's no Robert De Niro ripping off money, and doing that, meeting up afterwards to cut up the 20 million and go to the Bahamas. They're stealing $18,000 at a whack if they're lucky. It's a blue collar dirtbag criminal. So I said, what? Well, if you didn't have a drug habit, he's like, no, I didn't even try drugs till I got to prison. Now I'm scratching the ever-loving crap out of my head going, why did you do this? Right? He was articulate, and he said, for credibility. For credibility. I said, I'm lost. What, street cred? And I'm not picking on this dude. He's a really, really great kid. But he was about 160 pounds soaking wet. He didn't look like he was a gangbanger. No, he was an aspiring rapper. He was a guy, and by the way, he would wait until there was nobody in the phone room and go in there and record his raps over the phone while his girlfriend was recording them. So when he gets out, he can say, this one's hella hard. I actually recorded this from the joint. The number of people who are intentionally going to prison to get street cred, because if you're going to be in that game, if you're going to be a rap game, then how in hell are you going to have any street cred?
You have a New Zealander that loves the All Blacks.
Yeah, we have a New Zealander that loves the All Blacks. Well, there you go. Look at that. Well, all right. No, that was, I think that was the right way there, Danny Scoville. Yeah, see, we got it the right way. Yeah, we'll have to get that up. We'll have to get that up. Shooting stars always burn out. You know what? You're right. They do. They always burn out. Critical thinking, right? Critical thinking. Were those stars ever bright? Honestly. Take a look at these guys. And if you look at the analytics, first of all, if Wes Watson has 5 female people watching him, I would be shocked. If there are 5 women that watch his content, I would be literally shocked. Because this is content, and this goes for everybody across, this genre of jackasses. All of these guys are targeting young boys, right? Once my son went to jail and then prison, I tried to figure it out. Saw many channels and was able to understand real from people glamorizing it. There is nothing glamorous about prison. And let me tell you something else. Prison's boring. Right? The problem with prison is it's boring. It's Groundhog Day. You do the exact same thing every day. It's just the routine is, it's so damn boring until it's not. And as soon as it's not, it's terrifying. But this cat would have you believe that it's terrifying from the second you walk in to the second you walk out. You got to put your paperwork up your butt. Hey, I don't know how small his paperwork was, but most people's paperwork is pretty good sized. Now, maybe he's had a lot of stuff shoved up his backside and that this is a little easier for him. But the way I've always seen it, when you get to a yard, like when I went to Victorville, almost nobody got off the bus. I mean, once we got off the bus, most people did not go to the yard because the SIS, right, the head of SIS, that's like the FBI inside. It's the people that investigate inside are called SIS. And the head of security says, if you got bad paperwork, these guys are going to find out, right? So you'd probably be better off to just say, hey, I can't walk this yard, right, so that you don't get hurt. And I think 3 or 4 guys went to the yard, and there was a ton of people on the bus, right? The rest of them just went, yeah, I don't want to go to Victimville. This sucks. I didn't want to go either, but I knew that there was more dope on that yard than any other place in the BOP, and at that time, that's where my head was. I was more afraid of not having dope than I was of putting work in or any of that other stupid stuff that they talk about. But people getting their heads cut off and all of this stuff. I mean, it sounds absolutely horrific. No wonder the guy's so screwed up. And this was going on basically at a camp that he got shipped to in Oklahoma because he didn't do his time in Cali. And I'm sure the Cali boys are loving that. And I'll be honest with you, if there was a group of prisoners I don't want to piss off, they'd be the Cali boys. And I was telling Johnny, Florida would be high on that list too. Right? Florida would be high on that list. You guys may remember when I was doing a lot of Diddy coverage. There was a clip of film I showed you where Diddy was spotted in Florida, and a guy walked up to him and was like, look at this, man, and this is just Miami. It's like a movie, right? This is awesome. This is the diddler. This was at the height of the diddler. He hadn't been arrested yet. This was probably August, right? July or August. Yeah, awful. He wears a purse. And look, if you carry a man bag, it's all good. Seriously, I don't care what you do. But if you're gonna do the I'm an alpha male, dude, maybe don't carry a purse. Just a personal thing. Now, I'm sure he'd say, hey, Chicken Cherry Cola, good to see you. I know that he would say something along the lines of, this is Louis Vuitton, right? Or this is whatever. And he's probably got $25,000 into it, or so he says. Yeah, it's probably a knockoff that he got online, right? Everything about this dude is suspect. Everything. But the craziest thing is this fool is going to go to prison, or he's going to off himself. Because if I had to go back to the joint with the paperwork that this guy's going to be going in with, honestly, I would consider, yeah, I cannot imagine going with, everybody's mad at him. Everybody is mad at him. We'll reiterate. He loves to drop the N-word. There was a UFC fighter that said, hey, we're all P-words. I'll fight you. I'll put up my money, right? I'll put up money. And the two of us will fight. And Wes ends up blocking the guy and telling him, tell you what I'll do, though, is I'll send you a KFC gift card. That's racist. Right? That's not very nice. He wasn't saying that for any other reason other than to be a dick. And there's at least 4 that I can find. There's at least 4 that I can find. Places online where he's dropping the N-word with a hard R. So when he goes in, the black guys, right, the fellas, aren't going to like him much. Now, a lot of times, your car might protect you from another car. He ain't got one. This guy's on foot. I promise you, right? Maybe rethink your life choices if you think going to prison for street cred is a good idea, right? Right? Well, I mean, look what happened to Vanilla Ice, right? Vanilla Ice had one of the greatest selling singles in the history of music. No joke, right? Sold more copies of that than just about any other record ever, but he didn't have street cred, right? And he started to talk about how, you know, he had gotten shot in the butt or whatever. And I mean, honestly, back then that seemed stupid. But what we got going on now, you know, this gets terrifying because the lines get blurred between, like, look at that guy holding up that chunk of meat. Again, if you could see what he looked like before he started down the I want to be a famous influencer road, he looked like, there's not a dude, right, that wouldn't go, yeah, I'll take that physique. He looked like the guy from the cover of Men's Journal, right, or Men's Sports. He's not so swollen that he looks like he has breasts, but he's cut up. You know what I mean? You can see his abs. This dude obviously worked out. Then he went to, I'm so damn big, I can't even move my arms. And we've all seen these cats, right? That literally lift weights until they start doing this number. You know what I mean? By the way, it's for those guys who are pumping iron and, you know, hey, this is all natural. Do you have any idea how dumb you sound? Because it is one of the easiest things in the world to look at and go, no, that's juice. Juice usually looks like somebody put an air hose on some part of your body and inflated you like you were a tire. The alpha to me is the guy in Texas who literally punched his way out of his house to save his family and ultimately gave his life to do so. His family survived. Dane, booyah, right? Booyah. Do you know where the weight room is? I'll check it out. Good reference. Yeah, there was on 9/11, right? The flight that crashed. Now, there are people who say that this is a hoax, that they did this for rah-rah or whatever. But the story that we were told was that a guy talking to his wife found out that the other planes that were hijacked are crashing into buildings, right, and killing everybody. So he and a couple of other guys said, all right, let's roll. They weren't intending to be able to land that thing. They were just going to make sure that when they died, they weren't going to let these guys kill anybody else. That's alpha to me. And I bet you he wasn't tattooed from the top of his head, right, to the bottom of his feet. His skin's starting to look like a handbag too. These guys look god awful. You know what? Texas is a great state. I lived there. I lived there for a period of time, and I really enjoyed it. Punched a window and cut his arm, unfortunately. You know what? To me, it's always been a dude that was willing to take care of business. And I'll be honest, most of the guys that end up in jail because they're not great at following instructions. Now, that gets confused with alpha male, right? The lawbreakers are all alpha males. They're not, but they're rule breakers, right? And rule breakers tend to, there's some alphas in the pack. But I'll tell you what, everyone I ever saw wasn't yelling at anybody. One of that loud voice stuff. I watched a dude that scared the crap out of me. He wasn't talking to me, he was talking to someone else. But this dude said some stuff and he just went, hey, lower your voice, man. He's like, you trying to dry snitch? I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term, but that's where you draw so much attention that the cop's never going to let you fight. And this dude's voice just got low as hell. And he's like, hey, knock that off. My cell's a short walk from here. Let's go. Right? Come on. Let's go. And he said it like, if you were watching from the side, like I was sitting at the table, but if you were watching, you might have thought that this guy was inviting him in for a cup of coffee. There was no reason for him to yell, I'm going to break your legs. Call him the N-word, any of that other stuff that these people are doing. If I was beating on these guys to get views, right, I would have put Wes Watson's name in the title of this. I would have put Ben Azule's name in the title of this. This is the critical thinking stuff, right? If somebody comes out and tells you that they start to spit out, I did this, I did this, I did this, maybe ask about some timelines. right? Maybe ask about some timelines, because like this guy, King Ben, Azule, he worked for the Mossad for like a decade, right? He went over to train with the Shaolin monks in China. Man, you can't make this up, dude. Got that crap right out of a movie or something. The Shaolin monks, where do you find them? And when did he have time to bang his head against a wall to make it 4 times thicker? You know that there are kids that are going to do this. He said that he used to sit around his house and hit himself in the shin all day long with a hammer. There's a great clip of film of a kid who's saying to him, he's asking the kid about school, and the kid is trying to say to him, I get really good grades, and he's embarrassed to say it because he's heard this jackass talk about how the F student, that's the guy that's going to be an inventor. That's the guy that's going to change the world, right? Because he's so bored in the effing class because he's smarter than everybody else there. Yeah, you know what? No. No. Chances are the F student failed out because there's something really crappy happening at home, right? Or he's got a drug habit. Now, he probably read 2 books, during his prison sentence. And there was a quote once that said the C students usually have the A students working for them. And the reason that the person said that, right? The reason the person said that is because oftentimes they believe college shows you how to show up on time and follow the instructions that the professor has. Now, according to these guys, that's awful. In fact, if you have a 9 to 5, you're a square, piece of crap square. It's a really interesting approach to the whole thing. Yeah, they don't teach critical thinking in prison. And sadly, they should. They really should. Because it's a lack of critical thinking that puts you there, or a ripping drug habit. I mean, here in America, almost every person I met in prison had a drug problem. This guy, well, he was selling drugs at 11, bought his first Escalade at 13, right? I'd love to see how he did that too, wouldn't you? He also said that he bought a condo, right, in California, 13. How do you close that deal? You ever buy a house? It's like 700 pages of crap you got to sign. They let this 13-year-old walk in there and just knock that out. A little critical thinking. And the people interviewing him, how come nobody goes, come on, dude? Or Ben Azule, you beat up 30 guys? 30. Holy hell. Have you ever seen what 30 guys look like in a room?
Horrifying.
Yeah, horrifying, man. I have watched 4 or 5 guys attack a dude, right? That happens all the time in prison. And I've seen some tough dudes get attacked. If there's more than 2 guys, you're in deep trouble. But this guy, he took 30, right? But that's because he trained with the Shaolin monks, and his skull is 4 times thicker than yours. I'm not doing this because I want to get views off the back of these losers. I'm doing this because this genre trickles down to kids that you might know. For real. And it's not, criminal college. We say it all the time. It's like a university for dumb people. Those words help them master the critical shrinking. You know what? Tommy Bird, I wasn't going to go there. Now I have to. So this is a really funny story, right? This guy, Wes Watson, who they're calling Peg Watson. Yeah, tough handle. If you don't know what that means, you can Google it. But he and his girl, they were trying to make a dirty video, right? Which they weren't going to show the world, but he wanted to show just enough of it to the world, because somehow abusing your BI, whatever, and showing it to the world, that's cool. But he accidentally flashed his junk in the reflection of the glass table. And let's just say, Tommy Bird, you nailed it. Or he was born that way, right? Is it the juice, or was he born that way? Either way, I don't think he's buying Magnums. And that's just awful, and I should probably leave it on that. Absolutely ridiculous stuff, man. Do I really think kids are seeing his videos? Absolutely. Absolutely. Adults don't watch this guy's stuff. If you look at analytics of these kind of things, the people that really latch onto this are looking for male role models. Terrifying. Now, it might go 14 to 25, but I promise you, his audience, he's not got anybody over 25. The analytics would be horrific. I promise. Now, critical thinking, look at how many subs he's got, right? And then look at how many views he's getting. Now, about 10% is pretty much standard, not for that, but for how many thumbs up you get. Do me a favor on the way out, smack the thumbs up, right? But it's called engagement. His audience does not engage. The last video that he did, I was watching with Johnny Scoville, just the analytics. We didn't watch the video. I can't watch the guy. But we were just watching the analytics. It was 2.5 hours after that video had been put up and no one had left a comment. Or his team of people were getting rid of every bad one, right? Or they were getting rid of every bad one. And that's probably the case because this dude has become literally a laughing stock, right? An absolute laughing stock. However, there are still people giving this guy money. And it's the saddest part of this is that people who invest in this kind of stuff do it out of desperation, right? I saw a documentary or a video that a guy made about Wes, and he had a couple of people that he had actually interviewed who had bought the program. When he does his trainings, he calls you a stupid MFer, says you're too dumb to work with. A guy called up on the phone and says to him, hey, before we get going, I just want to tell you I'm a huge fan. He says, if you don't ask me an effing question, I'm going to effing kill you. You're wasting my effing time. Then he just berated this guy for like 3 minutes. This is your customer. His whole shtick is just, he's tougher than everybody in the world. And he's just going to curse at everybody. He's going to go back to prison. I'm not saying, hey, it might happen. He assaulted the hell out of this guy, right? Assaulted the hell out of him. Used a weapon. He's going back to prison. Warren Fissel, good to see you, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, Hughy's right. This dude's going to go back to prison. And, oh, what I would pay to be a fly on the wall when they move this guy through intake. And he starts screaming, I need protective custody. When he got arrested this time, no joke, he gets out and makes a video where he says, when you first get busted, ask anybody that's ever been to prison that when you first go in, if it says you're 210 pounds and you're 5'8", that's what the cop wrote down because he was guessing it. Well, I'll tell you what, every time I've ever had a booking photo taken, there was a big ass ruler on the wall right next to where you stood to make it really easy to see exactly how tall you are. Can you imagine being so insecure that being 5'8" somehow ruins you? For real. By the way, just in case he comes across this, I'm 6'2", right? Without the Chuck T's. Guys got Chuck Taylors with lifts in them. If you think I'm kidding, people watch it. Absolutely hysterical. Please do me a favor. If you've got a kid, teach him critical thinking. If there isn't a guy in his life, you can teach him critical thinking, right? But monitor. See what your kids and grandkids are looking at online. I'd absolutely love to be the nurse in his intake, no question. How great would that be? How great would that be? When he tells everybody in there, I'm 6 foot, 230 pounds. And they go, you're 5'8", 205. You know, and there's nothing to be ashamed of it being 5'8", 205. He's yoked the hell up. You don't get, and he's got probably 2 or 3% body fat, right? He is an absolute freak as far as the physical condition he's in, right? His ass looks like a pin cushion because he's constantly sticking himself with roids. But this is a dangerous genre, and it is so easy. Look, another one's going to pop up tomorrow. And when the stories start coming out, do the critical thinking thing, right? It took 2 seconds to look up this guy's prison record to see that he got shipped out of California to Oklahoma. That's never a good thing. It's never a good thing. When you get shipped out, it's because you couldn't hack it. It's always the way it is. I'm sorry, that's the truth. And you know what? Who cares? For real. You went to prison. You proud of that? Wow, man. If that's what sells as pride today, I swear to God, we probably can't save this world. If this is where we're at, I'd like to believe that this was a flash in the pan. This was a bunch of people who wanted to be the Tate brothers, and this is going to blow over soon. But I have a feeling we're just going to keep seeing more of it. Really had to talk about this because it was absolutely killing me. All right, people. Between now and the next time I see you, do me a favor and put a little love in your heart. And if you're saying, hey, you don't talk about content creators, these guys aren't content creators. I promise you. Go get a look at one of these jack wagons and then come back and tell me that they're a content creator, right? Look at the analytics too. Doesn't take much to go, wait, these numbers don't add up. If you got 1 million subscribers or 500,000 subscribers and you got 2,000 views and 6 likes, I don't think you got your numbers the right way. We will see you on the next one, people. Thank you so much for stopping by. I am Tommy. Take it easy, brothers.